Hi, I'm Paul Scheider from Hedgehog Leatherworks, and I'm joining you today for a very important but often overlooked topic. And the topic that I'm referring to is the ability to construct a proper fire. When I say construct a proper fire, I'm not talking about how to make a fire by friction, and I'm not talking about how to collect dry materials. Those are both things that we have covered in previous videos and previous articles. What I am talking about is once you get your tinder, your kindling, and your fuel wood, how do you put it together into a structure that will ignite quickly, burn hot, and burn as long as you want it to burn? That's what I'm going to show you in this video right now. We're at the location where we are going to build our fire structure. And I've already gone around the surrounding area and I've collected several armloads of fuel wood. What I'm doing right now is I am segmenting them down into the smallest, the medium, and the largest of that wood. And this is important because when we go to build the actual structure, it's going to be very easy and very efficient to build, which means we're going to be able to ignite it quickly and get that heat produced out very fast. This is also important because oftentimes people do just the opposite. They get the fire going and then they rush out to the surrounding area in a frantic panic to collect firewood just to keep it going. And that's really not a good thing in a survival situation because you want to stay in a very calm, very calculated, and very intentional frame of mind. Being organized in everything you do will keep you in that place and lead you to greater productivity and a much better chance of surviving. Alright, here's the surface where we're going to build our fire. And remember how I segmented all that fuel wood up a few minutes ago? Well, now that's going to make this process much easier and much more effective. What I'm doing is I'm starting out with the largest wood and building a platform on the bottom. Then I'm going to build another platform going across that and building it upwards like a log cabin. Now, I've heard this fire making method referred to as a couple different things. I first heard of it through a guy named Tim Ferriss that called it the upside down fire method. I've also heard it called the pyramid fire and the self-feeding fire. And even though this is completely the opposite of what we've always learned about how to build a proper fire, it works very, very well and it's very, very effective. And the reason why is because with a normal fire, you have your hotbed of coals, and as that hotbed of coals burns, all of the heat is lost into the cold, damp ground. None of it gets retained. Well, with this method, when the fire that we build on top ignites, that hotbed of coals burns down and gets caught into this log structure. What that does is it retains the heat, and so the fire starts at the top and burns down, just like the wick of a candle burns down through the wax. So, depending on the amount of fuel wood that you put in this and the size of the fuel wood that you put in this, you can build a fire that will last all through the night without having to get up and tend to it even one time. Okay, now I'm going to zoom in. We're going to take a closer look at how to actually ignite this fire. Alright, now we have the structure of the self-feeding fire completely in place. We've got our largest wood on the bottom, our medium stuff in the middle, and the smallest wood on top. The last thing we have to do is actually light this. And we start by putting our tinder bundle. In this case, it's a large bundle of dry pine needles that I've collected. We put that on top, and then we build a small teepee structure on top of this. Now, oftentimes when you build a teepee structure, you keep on adding to it and adding to it and adding to it. That is not the case with this method. All we have to do is build a small teepee, light it, and then the coals from this wood that we're adding on top here will fall down and ignite the wood below it. And this whole fire will burn in a downward direction, just like the wick of a candle burns down through the wax. I'm going to join you again in a second when I get this teepee structure complete. As you can see here, I have filled in the teepee structure of sticks on top of our large bundle of tinder. All of that is situated on top of our base platform of fuel wood. Now when I light this, I'm going to strike it with a magnesium ferro rod, and the tinder's going to catch on fire. Then I'm going to keep a gentle breath on it to make sure that this teepee wood gets caught on fire. Once that's burning well, The coals from that are going to drop down into the base layer, and they're going to ignite, and this is going to burn in a downward motion just like the wick of a candle burns through the wax. I'm going to strike this with the magnesium ferro rod, and I'm using my K-bar knife to do so. Now, if you've got a black coating on your blade like this, you're not going to be able to generate sparks. So I don't recommend doing this, but I'm doing this to demonstrate to you that if you have to use the sharpened portion of your blade, you're going to want to use the tip rather than the base. You always want to conserve the base of your blade as much as possible, because this is where you have the most carving power, and there's so many important things in wilderness survival that you need that ability to carve sticks for. So conserve that and always use the tip. The way I'm going to hold this is with my thumb up towards the blade, and as you've seen me do in a couple of previous videos, when I ignite this, I'm actually going to pull away with the rod rather than push forward with the knife, because I don't want to accidentally knock my structure over. Okay, so here we go. Get a couple sparks on it. It's going. Once it's going, give it some breath. Okay, everything's going just to plan. All you want to do is nurture this a little bit and keep some air on it. Because you want this teepee to catch on fire and produce that hotbed of coals that's then going to burn down. Okay, it's starting to catch on just fine. I'm going to turn this off, and I'm going to turn the camera back on in just a minute so that you can see the progress of this fire. But we've got a little bit of wind catching on here, and that's going to help encourage this to ignite. And again, as I said, once this catches on, it's going to burn in a downward direction and be very, very effective. It takes a little bit of nurturing in the beginning, but once it's going, it's very self-sustaining. Okay, here is a close-up of our fire. As you can see, it's going strongly now. And what I did is I spent a few minutes just nurturing it and fueling it in the right place and putting some air on it. And now that it's going, it's producing that hot bed of coals that's going to burn down through the entire fuel wood structure. So I really don't need to touch the fire at this point. It's taken care of all by itself. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn the camera back on periodically so that you can get an idea of how this process works as the fire burns throughout the different stages. It has now been about 25 minutes since I initially got the fire going, and I haven't touched it since. As you can see, it's going very strong all by itself, and there's still a ton of fuel wood for it to burn through. I would estimate that this fire would burn out in about an hour and a half to 2 hours if we didn't touch it and didn't add anything to it at all. Here is another angle of our fire. It has now been about 40 minutes since we initially lit this thing, and there is a decent amount of fuel wood underneath still. It has not even been touched yet. And the fire is burning very strong. It's got a very hot bed of coals, and I think this thing could stand to burn much, much longer. I'm going to conclude this video now, and I would love to stick around and be able to show you this fire structure down to the very last flame. But unfortunately, I have to get on with shooting some other videos today too. So I would encourage you to get out there and experiment with this so that you can understand how this technique works for yourself from your experience. But just as a quick recap, what we have done today is completely defy everything that we've traditionally been taught about how to build a fire, because we have started with our largest fuel wood and put it on the very bottom. Then we built a small teepee structure on top, lit that, and the coals from that small fire burned down and down and down through the majority of our fuel wood. I really hope that you have enjoyed this video as much as I have enjoyed making it. If you're interested in seeing other articles and videos like this, please check out our website at hedgehogleatherworks.com. Thanks so much. I'm Paul Scheider, and I'll see you next time.